Call the meeting to order. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Treaty 1 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. I'll introduce the panel members. Carrie Linklater, later. To my left, Lynn Nesbitt to my far left. The assessor today will be Ryan Valderrama. Our administrative assistant today will be Kara Balshaw. I'm Marcel Durando. I'll be chairing. We'll be hearing applications for revision of assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application. We will limit the discussions to those matters. The statements that applicants or the assessor make at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matter must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessment of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by council, independent of it and the administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decision with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to application of exemption from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included in the board order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. I will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. Swear them in, please.
Swear in. Please state your name.
Ryan Valderrama.
Do you swear the evidence you'll present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Swear in.
Yeah.
Please state your name.
Marcel Durando.
Do you swear the evidence you'll present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
We'll deal with 4000 Portage Avenue first. Mr. Valderrama, when you are ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first in the docket has a file number of 19-3816. It has a roll number of 07569028700. It is located at 4000 Portage Avenue. We're dealing with the roll year of 2020, using reference date of April 1st, 2018. The property is assessed at $1,890,000. And it is a cemetery, and it has an effective years built of 1957 to 2000. It is zoned as agricultural with a land area of 2,639,800 square feet and a planned area of 23,237 square feet. And on page 3 are two aerial photos of the subject property. And on page 2 we have the cost summary by building sections. We have 5 buildings, or I should say 7, sorry, with some are chapels, crematorium, shop and storage, crematorium and office, general office, storage area, and columbarium phases 1, 2, and 3. And on page 4, I do have some land sale comparables. They're all zoned as agricultural, and they're all ranging from 64 cents up to $1.38 per square foot. And below it is the map of the subject property and the comparable land sales. On page 5 is the valuation. The land valuation is at 41 cents per square foot. And the building, together with the detached, the total is $799,000. On page 6 to page 9, page 10, sorry, is the cost report. And that's my presentation now, Mr. Chair.
Do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions.
Panel members have any questions?
No questions.
None?
Mr. Chair, I think we've had a bit of a chat a while ago, and there's a request for an adjournment on this property?
Yes, we spoke outside and we're requesting an adjournment of this hearing. I got the assessor in to do an inspection of this property last week. There's a sub pending, probably issued sometime early next year. Yeah. So at this point, we would just prefer to adjourn this issue altogether to a later date.
Couldn't we just confirm it? You're not gonna be able to deal with the sub anyway till the following year. Adjourning it is, what's adjourning giving us? Are you gonna bring more evidence in, after the adjournment? Because I don't see any here now.
It's a,
Probably more administrative, Mr.
yeah,
Chairman.
it's a technical thing.
Can you give us a few minutes then, please? We'll call the meeting back to order. I take it by what you're saying, you guys want to... Do we know when the sup is coming, Ryan?
It's still in the process. We don't have a definite date. It's if, when, but at the I shouldn't say at the earliest, but 2020 will be covered. Pretty sure of that, and then we'll just figure out if 2019, when in 2019 would be the effective date is.
And you have 20 days to appeal the sup, correct? So you could either withdraw or have us confirm it, but adjourning it doesn't really give us any gain here, does it? I mean, you guys are probably gonna sit down and discuss this issue.
We would, and.
So I'm trying to figure out why you want, if we adjourn,
Okay.
the trouble we have is bringing the three of us back together again.
So strictly from an administrative perspective, the reason that we asked for an adjournment on this issue is because everybody, including us, knew that there was a supplementary coming. We had asked the assessor to inspect and hopefully get that supplementary issued as quickly as possible so we could actually have it before the date of the hearing. Now, that wasn't possible for logistical reasons. We did get the assessor in to inspect it, however, the reasoning for asking for an adjournment is essentially to have the fee cover the supplementary. We don't,
Fee won't cover the supplementary because it's a separate application.
it's a separate application, essentially the client feels that they're paying an appeal fee essentially for the same appeal.
Yeah? Wouldn't make it difficult, more difficult all the time, would they? We can adjourn it. They can roll through over that way. Yeah, it's just bringing us back together again. Is there any way they can create a new meeting? Okay, so we won't need the same panel back
Correct.
if we adjourn.
Yep.
This matter is now adjourned.
Thank you.
Sorry about that, I just,
No, sorry. Yeah.
I wanna make sure we have the i's dotted, t's crossed, because
Appreciate that.
Thank you all. Have a good
in
day.
technical issues sometimes.
It's me?
You're up.
I thought it would never happen.
I said I'd have you out of here by 11.
Well, parking's till 10:30, so
Oh, okay.
we'll consider it.
Will you swear on the Bible or affirm with oath today? Please state your name.
It's Rob McLaughlin?
Do you affirm the evidence you present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I
Mr. Valderrama, when you are ready, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next property has a file number 19-929. It has a roll number of 060807147000. It is located at 100 Uville Street. We're dealing with the roll year of 2020 and a reference date of April 1st, 2018. The total assessed value for the property is $7,995,000 and split into two classifications and same liability as taxable. The first classification is assessed at $6,631,000 and it is a designated recreational property. The next classification is $1,364,000 classified as other property. It is a golf course with effective years built of 1957 to 2004. It is zoned as PR2, Parks and Recreation, and has a land area of 3,018,403 square feet. And on page 2, there are 3 buildings in this property. First one is a clubhouse, the second one is a pro shop, and the third one is a maintenance. On page 3 are aerial photos of the subject property. The first one highlights the entire golf course, and then the one at the bottom highlights the clubhouse and the pro shop. On page 4 are some of the depreciated value of the detached structures and the building. And there's also the land valuation. There are 2 split lands. The first one is valued at $1.26 per square foot. It has a net area of 2,931,473 square feet, and that is the 70T or the designated recreation. The second one has a net rate of $1.73 with a net area of 86,930 square feet. And it is the other taxable or the 60T portion. On page 5 are some of land sale comparables. They are all over the city as per the map below it. They're all ranging from $1.38 per square foot up to $1.97 per square foot sale price per square foot. Page 6 is the zoning of the property, which is PR2. And on page 7 is the cost report for 2020 for the subject property. There are some additional functional depreciation. In some buildings, they are 15%, and they're all 15% additional external depreciation as well on maintenance building. The first 2 on page 7 has 15% additional functional depreciation, and then considering back then it was considered that there were some issues or some functional issues that were addressed. That's why we already included that 15% before and up to now. And on the clubhouse part, there's an additional external depreciation of 20%, recognizing the fact that it is being used as a golf course, and in a way it's not being used as in the entire year, only part year. And on the pro shop side, we also have an additional external depreciation of 15%, considering that it is not being used the entire year. And that has been in place again for this round, for this assessment. And on page 9 is the summary of the cost approach. On page, starting from page, if I may lead you to it, Mr. Chair, on page 14 is the municipal board order highlighting how golf courses should be valued. On page 18, the board findings, the board preferred the cost methodology over a hybridized income/cost approach. The reasoning behind it is because, as I may quote, the board finds that the cost approach is the method best suited to evaluate properties such as golf clubs, given the limited market, the problems in collecting accurate and adequate data on the property's revenues, and the use of property as a special utility. And that's in yellow highlight, that's on page 18. And on page 21, if I may continue, the T70 or the 70 designated recreation status allows for recreational property such as golf courses to be taxed at a much lower level than other similarly located non-recreational properties. The seasonal nature of operations such as golf course is addressed by T70 rates. And that is why we are seeking for confirmation on this one based on the cost methodology that we have used to value the property. And that's my presentation, Mr. Chair.
Do you have any questions of the
I do, sir.
assessor?
I just want to be clear, you identify one structure as the clubhouse. On your map at the bottom of page 3, can you identify what the clubhouse is?
At the bottom, it's, I believe where the arrow is. The arrow is just right here on the right side of the picture.
It's on the right edge of the picture, right? Just
Yeah,
a
that's
little bit away from the actual clubhouse.
Yeah, it's almost at the corner of the property line.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure.
Thank you. Yeah.
Do you know that it's basically a rigid steel garage, seasonal for the storage of clubs and golf carts? It's not necessarily a pro shop. Just identifying that, just to ask what it is. Do you know the actual pro shop is inside the main building?
Not the pro shop, the clubhouse, as far as I know, it has all the restaurant, the banquets, and there may be some storage in there.
Have you inspected the property?
No, I wasn't able to.
Okay. Now, what you said, based on, can you explain to me what the goal is here? Is our goal market value?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I don't, can you rephrase the question? It's not
What's the
clear.
assessor's objective? Is it market value, or is it something else?
Yes,
It is market value.
correct.
Can you describe the market for a golf course?
Due to the nature of the limited market of this property, our goal is to value this under cost approach. And that is why we are seeking to have this confirmed, Mr. Chair, because of the limited market of this kind of property, we valued it under cost approach, which is one of the valuation methods in order to come up with a market valuation as well, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Assessor, could you please, are you aware that there's a restaurant, there's office space, there is also retail space in this structure? Are you aware of that?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Now, in other buildings, how are they treated? How are they valued? If you have warehouse, or you have retail, or office space, how is that valued by the city?
They are valued under income specifically because there are some rents that they are paying, and these are market rents, Mr. Chair.
Well, that's not necessarily true. They may or may not be paying rents. It's a market rent.
Stay on the question.
Okay, yeah, I'm trying to. So you would agree then that structures that have restaurants and have warehouse space and retail space trade based on the income approach, correct?
Not necessarily, Mr. Chair. As for this case, as I've mentioned, this is,
I'm speaking in general.
in general, yes.
Okay. You have segregated this assessment, this area, to 2 acres of land, plus this clubhouse structure, which is classified as class code 60 other. and it is more highly taxed than the rest of the golf course, would you agree?
Correct.
So, you've isolated this structure, so would that indicate that the market value ought to be based less on a golf course and perhaps maybe more on how it would sell in the open market? This structure plus 2 acres?
The way that this one is set up is we look at the property as a whole. This is a golf course, and the buildings or structures that are in there is being used for the purpose of the golf course and the nature of the golf course. Mr. Chair.
But it's not taxed similarly, is it? The
No,
golf
they're
course
not.
is taxed at the Class Code 70, which is a much lower tax than a Class Code 60, isn't that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So, you explained to me over the phone or by email that the actual overall assessment has gone down
That's correct, from previous.
from previous years. However, I pointed out to you that the Class Code 60 portion, although the overall has gone up, or down, pardon me, the Class Code 60 portion has gone up 8.5%. Is that correct?
You mentioned that in your email, yes, that's correct.
Is it true or is it not true?
It is true because of the cost estimator that we are using, Mr. Chair.
So what you're telling me then is the Class Code 70 portion has gone down substantially, whereas the Class Code 60 portion has gone up. Is that correct?
Looking at that, yes, correct, Mr. Chair.
How
That's correct.
did the Class Code 70 portion go down? Was it the land that was reduced, or was it the structures that were reduced?
I didn't specifically see how it went down, particularly if it's land or the structures in the Class Code 70, Mr. Chair. I wasn't able to determine if it is the land valuation or the detached structure that went down.
Well, I note that you provide land sales, and the land sales are dated 2014, 2015, and 2012. So these would have been the same land sales that you used for the last go-around, for the 2016 market value? Is that correct?
I did look at the evidence from the last go-round, Mr. Chair, so I'm not sure if these are the same land sales that were used the previous cycle.
Would you agree that they could have been the same land sales?
I couldn't agree to that statement or question, Mr. Chair, because I chose these land sales without really looking at the previous evidence.
You would agree that the 4 land sales you provided may have been considered for the previous reassessment?
I couldn't agree to that, Mr. Chair.
All right. So, if these in fact land sales were or were not used for the previous reassessment, I would assume that land stayed static because there's no different information between 2016 market value and 2018. Is that correct?
I don't understand the question, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry. Can you?
Well, I guess the bottom line is what I would like to know is what changed between the 2016 market value and the 2018 market value? The information, the evidence is exactly the same for land. Why is the Class Code 70 portion 10% less than it was the previous go-round?
Again, Mr. Chair, the assessment from previous cycle is an assessment, and hopefully the board would consider that we're not considering comparing assessments.
Physically, the clubhouse, has it changed between the 2016 market value and the 2018?
I don't think there's any change, Mr. Chair.
Okay, but the assessment has changed, is that correct?
Based on the cost estimator that we're using, yes, Mr. Chair, it changed.
Well, again, we're not sure about why the assessment has gone down. So what now I'd like to know, all the structures that are not the clubhouse seems to have gone down, plus the land has gone down. Why is it that the clubhouse has gone up?
Again, we're using cost estimators, so.
You also use
again,
cost estimators on the rest of the buildings that are Class Code 70. Why did they go down and everything else go up? It's Class Code 60.
Again, if the cost estimator indicates that something went down, it's because of the detached structure as well. The detached structure is mostly attributing to the building portion of the class code 70P, Mr. Chair, if I may direct you to page 8. Page 8, the bottom section is the detached structures. One of which is the second one, the golf course, which is 18 holes, I believe, in the count. It's valued at $2,920,000, and it's valued under cost again. And if we look at the class code 70 on the building side, on page 4, second to the last spreadsheet that indicates building. On site 1, it says detached $2,930,000. And that is mainly
Page
one-
4, which one?
Page 4 on second to the last spreadsheet or chart that indicates building.
Yeah,
Third says detached, and it says $2,930,000, which is attributed to the 18 holes that were valued under cost on page 8. So it may be one of the determinants or the contributors of the reduction in the 70P section or classification, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, I guess the question I have is the class code 70 portion of this assessment was $7,421,000 for the 2016 market value. Now for the 2018 market value for the 2020 tax year, it's $6,631,000, so it's down 10.6%. Whereas, Mr. Chairman, it was $1,256,000 on the class code 60 portion for the previous assessment, and currently it's $1,364,000, so it's gone up 8.6%. I just want to know why one went up and one went down. And unfortunately, the most expensive taxed portion of this has gone up 8.5%.
Again, Mr. Chair, if I may direct you to the cost report. It's separate. The detached structure is separate from the main building.
Which page?
Page 7 and 8. So the detached structure on page 8, it has its own section, so meaning it has its own cost estimations. On page 7 to the upper portion or the top portion of page 8 are the main buildings. They have their own cost estimation as well. Why one portion or one building went down or went up and why the detached structure went down, again, it's a cost estimator that we're using, Mr. Chair. And if something has gone down significantly or gone up, then it's not because we have increased it intentionally. It's because of just how the cost estimation is for the market values as of April 1st, 2018.
So if I may,
you may.
so what you're telling me is you've extracted this from Marshall, Swift, or Vex, or whatever, without any observation of what a market possibly could be, or what the reality is of a market value for this particular building.
Again, as I've mentioned earlier, Mr. Chair, cost valuation is also an indicator of market values for properties such as golf courses, but
How?
not limited to golf courses.
Can you explain
Again, it's
how?
because of the limitation in the market. It has a limited market activity, and as I've mentioned, cost valuation is one determinant of a market value for those kinds of properties, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Assessor, if I could, speak to page 7, your clubhouse valuation, the cost. You have normal depreciation of 24%. What does normal depreciation, what is that generally for?
It's for age, Mr. Chair.
Normal wear and tear, age, is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Now, functional depreciation, what does that reflect?
Well, before, we have considered a 15% additional functional depreciation because we have already, when we're dealing with this in the past, we have considered some functional obsolescence or depreciation, such as the design of the building and all these things, which we are still carrying forward up to now. And again, the building it's not a cookie cutter, Mr. Chair. It may have its functional defects, and which we have considered at 15%. This was made specifically for this golf course, and other golf courses may have different configuration. It's kind of a built to suit, Mr. Chair.
But you have not visited the property.
No, I didn't visit yet.
So, would you agree that the property is a two-story building?
Yes, based on our files.
All right. Would you also agree that it has a banquet and kitchen facility on the second floor?
Yes, I agree.
Would you consider that to be functionally obsolete?
No, no, Mr. Chair. It's more of the design of the building that we considered before, based on my analysis and research in the office.
Would you agree that buildings are built with functional obsolescence built into it to suit the tenant or the prospective owner?
In our department's conversation with, or based on my research and analysis, Mr. Chair, the 15% is more than enough for the functional obsolescence that we gave the building.
So
And
your evidence...
We have already recognized that by giving it 15% functional depreciation.
Your evidence is that there's no negative aspect to a second floor restaurant?
No, I don't think so, in my opinion.
You're aware that the population is getting older and access to 18 steps up to the second floor would be limiting? Would you agree?
I would agree that the population is increasing.
It's
It's not
getting
necessarily getting older in terms of if there are more older generation or younger generation. I would agree to the statement that the population is increasing.
For external depreciation, could that also be economic depreciation?
Could be.
Well, is it or not?
It could be. It's a general term, external depreciation. Could be one of which could be economic depreciation.
Well, can you confirm that part of the cost approach includes 3 different depreciation factors? One is normal, one is functional, and the other is economic. External is kind of a new one on me. Can you tell me that that's included? External, what does it mean?
It's an encompassing term which includes economic depreciation, Mr. Chair. We don't have economic depreciation on our one of the fields of depreciation. We have it as an external depreciation. It's more of terminologies being used, Mr. Chair.
What would that be? What have you allowed 20% for specifically?
We recognize the fact that the property is being used as a golf course, and so it is not being used the whole year round. And so we have accounted for that by giving it additional external depreciation of about 20%, Mr. Chair.
So what you're suggesting is that 20% is the depreciation factor you've used for the fact that it's open only 50% of the year?
I will get to that, Mr. Chair, if it is really open 50% of the year, but yes, it's in consideration of the nature of the golf course business.
Is there any other consideration for any other economic factors that affect this property?
None.
I'm probably going to be sorry about this, but I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Do you have any questions, Carrie?
Just Couple quick ones. So, Mr. Boulderama, you said that this, you did not have a chance to inspect this property.
No, I wasn't able to.
Do you have in your notes when this was last inspected?
Oh, just slipped off of my head. I forgot. I'm sorry. I can't say that specifically. I forgot. Sorry.
No worries.
I had it. I forgot.
Page 5 of your brief, you've got
Right, okay.
land sale comparables.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm assuming comparables 1 through 4 are not golf courses, correct?
No, they're not, Madam Chair. Madam, sorry.
Do you know what they are?
They're just vacant land all over the city, Madam. They're not necessarily golf course. No,
So it's just strictly, it's all zoned ag rural?
ag, rural, residential,
So it's all
and parks.
undeveloped?
Yes, they are.
Okay. That's all my questions for now, thank you.
Thank you, Madam.
Lynn?
Yeah, just getting back to that external depreciation and the definition of it, you said it includes economic
Yeah.
depreciation. Is there any other depreciation? If it just includes economic, what else?
Based on my studies and my courses, no, those are the three that I know of.
So in this
It's more
case,
of a
you're using
terminology.
external equals economic, essentially.
In a way, yes, Madam.
Okay. And are you aware of the percent of the year that the clubhouse is open?
I want to get into that, but without really jumping into my rebuttal later
Okay,
on.
that's
But
fine.
it's yeah, maybe I'll just deal with that at the rebuttal
Okay,
when I
that's-
submit the rebuttal. What
That's
it is.
fine. Okay, then I'll just
Thank-
wait.
thank you,
Okay,
ma'am.
thank you.
Yes. Mr. Chair.
You're on to my questions now, right? Your municipal board that you brought in,
Yes,
page 14, that was a privately owned golf course, was it not?
Glendale Country Club.
Privately owned land?
The owner submits, looks like the owner, yes, I would say based on, yeah, it looks like it is privately owned. I haven't, didn't check if it's privately owned and or publicly owned, so I can't answer that specific question, Mr. Chair.
If it had been property owned by the city, do you think they would still have used the cost approach?
Again, this is a golf course, and golf course, if for equity, we should compare it the same way as other golf courses, or we should value it same way as other golf courses. There shouldn't be any there could be exceptions, however, exceptions if the use has changed. In this case, they're all golf courses. This one and the municipal board decision and the one that we're dealing with right now, Mr. Chair. So I would say that they should all be valued under cost approach.
Have you looked at the lease that the city has with the golf course on this property?
Yes, on the subject property.
On this subject property?
Yes, I did.
And how many years is it?
25 years.
And when does it expire?
It started 2001,
Yeah, so it expires when?
2026, if I do the math correctly.
The city receives all the buildings with that lease after the lease is, if it's not renegotiated, is that not the way it was written?
Yes, correct.
I'm gonna hear you, I might have some more questions after.
Can I just ask a question?
Sure, go ahead.
On your page 8,
Yes, ma'am.
the detached structures, specifically the golf course component, is that the rate of 214.8 thousand? That's per hole?
Yes, that's correct, ma'am.
And
It is a
that-
standard one,
I
not a
was gonna
championship.
ask, where did that, is that a Marshall and Swift?
Yes, it is coming from Marshall and Swift, and it is just a standard, not your average golf
Okay.
hole.
So would
and
that
it's
be
not even a
standard for
championship.
all golf courses?
There are some that are more expensive because,
Okay.
yeah, they are more of a championship level.
Okay.
And in this case, it
This
is
is not,
somehow, it is somehow, but
So
it is under.
does it range, does that rate range significantly? Like, is this in the middle, is it at the bottom
It is in the
end?
middle.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
On with your presentation.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to introduce this as evidence, please. The assessor has outlined the roll number and the address and the file number, so I'll just begin reading the front page. St. Barnabas Golf Club is appealing the assessed value of the above referenced property. Specifically, we are requesting the amount of assessed value applied to the clubhouse constructed in 2004 to be reduced to acknowledge the economic and functional obsolescence that is not reflected in the cost approach. The subject improvement is uniquely constructed to serve as a golf course clubhouse facility. It is also situated on land that is owned by the City of Winnipeg and therefore subject to the policies and governance of the City of Winnipeg. It is asked that the Board of Revision consider a request to value the clubhouse by the income approach. The income approach, or capitalization income, is a direct method of estimating value depreciation. Depreciation is provided for the process of estimating the quantity, quality, and duration of the income, and ultimately the property value. The income approach has market justification when income, expenses, and risk factors are derived from the market. It is our position that the income stream applied to the clubhouse would provide a more equitable valuation and would reflect any obsolescence attributed to any overconstruction or the unique nature and situation of the improvement. So I ask you to turn to the next page, and I completed my income approach. Now, the main floor is 8,837 square feet, and I've used $6 a square foot. Second floor is where the kitchen and the dining area is, and I've used $7 a square foot. Now, what I've done is I've utilized specifically the City of Winnipeg data on what rents are, what expenses are, and all the rest of it. Now, you'll notice that the City of Winnipeg has a median square foot rate of $14.47. I've used $6 and $7. Now, either I could use $14.47 and a vacancy factor of 50%, or I could use $6 and $7 and a market vacancy, and that's what I've chosen to do. The vacancy is 5%. Actually, the city outlines it at 5.5%. I've used 5%. So that gives us a net income of $111,950. The rental allowances of shortfall of $7 a square foot on the 5%, management of 5%, and 2% other, leaves us an effective net income of $97,779. Now, this particular structure is a nice clubhouse, and it is specifically a golf clubhouse. I don't know what else it would possibly be if it ever sold individually. In my opinion, restaurants on upper floors, specifically underserved by a very small elevator and 18 stairs, two stairways of 18 stairs, really limit the people that are going to be using it. We need mobile individuals in order to book banquets and weddings and such, and that's a consideration. Also, the bar is upstairs, and there is a balcony off the bar that serves the bar. The main floor is locker rooms and pro shop and office. Now, this entire structure is, for the most part, open for business 6 months a year. They do have weekly, they've been able to cobble together weekly banquets, whether weddings or whatever, so that takes up a Saturday night, but for the most part, they're able to do about 50 a year. Now, I should also outline exactly what this is. This is a non-profit golf course. It's private, public, so it's open to everybody. And the city is responsible for nothing. They fund the maintenance and quality control and all the rest that goes on with this particular golf course. Now, you'll know if you've gone to a city golf course, unfortunately, cutbacks and stuff have left some very nice golf courses in a bit of a shambles. This is a pristine golf course, and it's all because of the management of this particular facility and how they're able to earn their money, maximize their buildings, and be self-sufficient. This, because it's city-owned, the land for the most part, it also pays, that's actually not the point. This also faces 4,000 lineal feet of sewer and water service. Like the typical homeowner will pay $5.45 for their 50-foot lot as a water and service charge. This is 4,000 lineal feet because they're using Uville as well as Archibald. So they're paying $22,540 fee. I have a tax bill in there if you like. Oh, geez, I didn't have, it would be just ahead of the City of Winnipeg General Assessment Valuation. I provided a 2019 tax bill. And you'll see that the frontage levy is $22,544. That's excessive. You know, it's the way it is for all commercial properties, but it is something that this nonprofit has to deal with. That is an economic factor that needs to be recognized. Also, Guibo, if you're familiar with the Guibo, it runs off of Archibald. Unilaterally, the city decided they were going to pave that lane and sent the local improvement bill to the golf course, which is $8,148 a year. So they're paying $30,000 in local improvement costs, which are almost as much as the $36,000 in municipal taxes, or municipal and school taxes, pardon me. So that is an economic consideration. I've used, as I said, I've used the square foot rate of $6 and $7 to recognize the fact that I believe it's a half rate. Market value is $14. Well, I can use $14 and 50% vacancy. I've chosen to use this lower rate and move on to the market vacancies and market factors. The end result is I end up with capitalizing at 11%, which is at the higher range of the city cap rates, because of the risk and the fact that it's open only 6 months a year. We end up with a total market value of $889,000. Now, what we're doing is we're trying to figure out what the fair market value of the building is. The building, after you subtract the land value from the city of Winnipeg of $150,000, we have a residual building value of $739,000 by the income approach, which recognizes all the functional, physical, and economic issues that this particular property faces. After doing this, I decided, well, why not apply the same factors, the same consideration to a cost approach? So that's what I've done. On the next page. In my opinion, this is a built-to-suit clubhouse with very little value outside of perhaps a church, if it's not a clubhouse anymore for a golf course. So I've added, the normal depreciation remains the same at 24%. The functional depreciation that the city gave was 15%. We don't specifically know what the functional depreciation is for. I'm saying it needs another 15% depreciation for the commercial kitchen upstairs, the restaurant and bank facility, and the fact that it's a golf clubhouse. I've added another 15%, so now we have 30% functional depreciation. For the external depreciation, which is, in my mind, it's economic, I don't know what external could be, The fact is, it's open half a year. That is a real challenge for any particular building. I've allowed 5%. The frontage levy, well, everybody gets assessed at least one frontage levy. The lineal feet on Newville is 622 feet, so I made no adjustment for that. But the frontage levy on Archibald is 3,514 feet at 545 is $19,154, so I've adjusted my cost for that economic circumstance, as well as the Gibo Lane improvement, which is the residual. If this property was to sell today, the liability to the new owner would be $81,495,000. So here we have $738,000 on the building for the clubhouse by the cost approach, and $739,000 by the income approach. My recommendation essentially is to go from the Class Code 70 land of $3,701,000, Class Code building, or 70 building of $2,930,000. To leave that unchanged at $6,631,000. But for the Class Code 60, the original value is on the clubhouse is $1,160,000, and a total Class Code 60 assessment of $1,364,000. I'm recommending that the Class Code 70 portion remain unchanged, and that the clubhouse portion be reduced to $739,000, which gives us a revised Class Code 60 valuation of $943,000. I believe this reflects the circumstance of this particular property. It's a seasonal property, it's a nice property, but the market value is extremely limited. Given the fact that it's a nonprofit and it's self-sufficient, and it seems like it's, I'll just leave it there. Thank you.
Questions, Ryan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On page 2, there were some parameters used here. You mentioned that these were from the city,
Yes, sir.
and did you, do you know how these were derived? These parameters? And
Yes.
these are model driven, correct?
These are as a result from questionnaires and market evidence. The actual circumstance out in the private sector, people operating buildings, the cost to operate a restaurant, a warehouse, an office space. This is all derived from that kind of market evidence.
And these are model driven, correct? I mean, after we've considered the market evidence, we come up with a model parameter.
Based on
correct?
market evidence, yes.
Based on market evidence, okay.
Specific market evidence to Winnipeg and St. Boniface.
Okay, correct, okay. So I'm clarifying. On page 3, on your functional depreciation, you added 15%. And I heard you mention that our 15%, you weren't aware of how it was derived, correct?
I asked you.
And I've answered that it's because of the design of the building, which we have already considered, considering the fact that, you know, anyway, I'm gonna ask a question. So your 15% is because of the operation, business operation of the, within the clubhouse, that's only 50% in a year, correct? That's your functional depreciation, additional 15%?
The functional depreciation?
Yeah.
No, the functional is because of the style of the building. The fact
Okay.
that it's a specifically
Right.
built clubhouse.
So
It's got
spec-
locker rooms,
so-
it's got a retail space for the golf shop. It's the restaurant's upstairs, the kitchen's upstairs. It's, that to me is functionally obsolete. That is not,
Right. So it's built to suit, correct? If I
absolutely, it is.
And you're giving it an additional 15% because of the obsolescence of, because of aging population, as you mentioned earlier in the questioning? Or
It limits
limits,
the customers, yes. That's one of the factors.
and the fact that it is built to suit, does it mean that that they specifically built all those in terms of how they're gonna operate their business, correct?
When I say built to suit, the consideration is for the current function of the property. There was no consideration given to what the fair market value would be going forward. It's functionally obsolete going forward. What else would it be? What else would you use it for?
And external depreciation were also based on half the year subject to weather, is that correct? Is that correct? Because of the, 50%, they can't use it or operate, is that correct?
The golf course,
They're only open 50% of the year?
it's 6 months a year, and then perhaps less, depending on whether the winter is late or early, or lots of rain in the summertime. You're at nature's mercy with this particular property.
Okay. I was asked if there was a lease. Would you be aware of if there's any lease in place on this one?
There is a lease, and they're negotiating it right now.
And would you be familiar with the terms of the lease?
No.
No. Okay, and, okay, and you mentioned there's an elevator to this.
There is an
building, right?
elevator, yes.
Okay,
I inspected the property, so I know.
okay, good. Okay, and you're relying on income approach, you mentioned that earlier, correct?
Also the cost, supported by the cost.
Oh, okay. So, if I may, Mr. Chair, I would like to submit a rebuttal evidence.
Can we ask our questions first, Ryan?
Oh, sure, sure, sorry, yeah.
Carrie, any questions?
Yep.
So sir, you, on page 2 of your brief, you picked a cap rate of 11%,
Correct.
which is high. So are you choosing that cap rate because of the inherent risk?
Well, the range is 10.
Sorry, I'm just gonna ask, because this property is under lease from the city,
Correct,
and it's just been stated that the lease is up in 2026.
yes.
So is the golf course then there by the city's grace in terms of in 2026, the city may decide not to renew the lease?
I guess absolutely.
Okay.
I don't think that's gonna happen, but I mean, that there's a possibility.
Of course, because it's leased, yeah. Sorry, just because the elevator and the aging population has been brought up, how big is this elevator?
2 wheelchairs.
So it's sort of smaller than a
It's about-
standard?
3.5 feet by 6 feet,
Okay.
and there is 18 stairs. 2
To
stairways.
get, to get it, oh, okay.
8, yes.
Okay. And you were talking about the 6 months a year open, but that can vary due to the weather, of course, we just experienced in October. But are there weddings, are there not other events, like
There-
weddings held
There is
throughout
about
the
50
year?
events a year, is what I'm told. 50 events a year.
50.
So throughout the winter, generally 1 day a week, Saturday, they'll have an event. The average is 50 days, 50 events a year.
Okay. And what is the actual amenities in the clubhouse in terms of, what is the building like inside?
It's very nice.
So
Well-
it's been well maintained,
Well,
regularly
it's
upgraded?
relatively new, and it was built to
Right,
be
2004, I think?
almost a country club-ish feel to it. I mean, it's well done, it's got high ceilings. It's got a very nice banquet facility for 250 people with ornate windows looking over the golf course and vaulted ceilings. They did it right, but it is a clubhouse, and what else would it possibly be?
Right, okay, because everything is on the second floor, which is.
Yes.
And just in regards to your rates of $6 and $7 for the locker rooms and then the upstairs dining facilities.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, you may have said this, but where did you come up with those numbers?
Well,
And I understand you took the.
shame on me for not tagging this. They have provided rental well, a median rental income the city provided at $14.47. That would be of the retail office.
What page?
So
Yeah, what page?
He didn't number them.
6 pages from the back. This is the page here.
Okay.
Next to the map.
Next to that, yeah. Lots of notes.
Calibration of the submodels, potential rental income.
Oh, so here's that.
Okay. My last question, and I'm gonna use the assessor's brief. I just wanted to be clear. Sorry, this is the clubhouse
That's
here?
correct.
Okay, and these two buildings?
One is a canopy.
Okay. Used for,
Well, it's just it's a covered entrance is all.
okay,
And I don't know what the other one is. It's not there now.
and what is this building here?
That is where they store the members' clubs, as well as golf carts and such.
Is this the 1957 building?
This would be, they identify it as the pro shop, and it's not the pro shop. The pro shop is actually inside the
Right.
clubhouse.
Okay, so that's all my questions, thank you.
Lynn,
No, I have none, they've been asked, thank you.
where you did your breakdown on your third page, I think it is? I just want you to run me through this again. The land you were okay was at 6,631,000, correct? That was the land value?
Yes.
The 70T portion.
The 70
Well,
Cs.
the class 70 is,
Class 70 is the 6,631,000,
That's correct.
Designated rec, yeah.
yes,
right?
yes.
Now, the CC 60, you
Right.
have 204,739, that's 943,000. Is the value you're putting on,
That's correct. That's what my recommendation from 1,364,000 to 943.
from 1,160,000?
Yeah, well, so again, class code 70 does not change. I'm not asking for any change to class code 70.
So-
Class code 60 though, was at 1,364,000,
1,364,000, yeah,
and I'm asking for a reduction down to 943,000.
to 943. So what's your total then that you're asking for?
Well, the total would be
43
943 of
Plus-
class code 60,
plus
plus
6631,
6631
and that comes up
to
to?
7,574,000.
That's what I thought. The, I wish these maps were a little bit bigger.
Or if you were maybe a little younger, eh?
Yeah, or if I, Gibo, when it does the wraparound,
Yes.
the lane, it comes down the front,
Archibald, and then it wraps around on the Eagle Lane.
but it racks all the way up to Viewville again, right?
I walked it, I measured it, 775 feet.
Is your portion that's on your property,
That's-
connected to the city's property?
It's adjacent, it's contiguous with,
Yeah.
I like that word, contiguous.
Contiguous. So you got no problem with the other buildings, the way they've evaluated them for value then?
Well, they're the portion at 10%. So I mean, it did go down. The question is, why did that go down and not the other portion that is done by cost approach? The land sales are static. They must have used the same land sales this last time as they did this time. Why would they? Because they're all within the, prior to the reference here. And yet, something has changed. Now, either the depreciation is higher on the buildings, or they decreased the land value for some reason. And if so, why didn't they do that with the class code 60 portion? Instead, that went up 8.5%.
Frontage levy and higher. I've got no further questions, Ryan? Yeah, go
Can I
ahead.
ask a quick question? Sorry. You had stated, sir, that, okay, so the banqueted facility is basically used, I'm going to assume, or you can answer this, on a full-time basis between, I'm gonna say, April to October, when the golf course is running, correct?
Well, no, the banquet facility, well, it's
On the
free.
second floor.
The
So are
second floor,
are members up there eating lunch and dinner?
there is a restaurant there
Right,
that serves the members.
right. So then, during the winter months, the other 6 months, is that only open on Saturdays for banquets?
There would be, I would say, yes, there would be very little call, because nobody's ever there.
Correct, okay, that's what I wanted to know, thank you.
Ryan, you wanted to,
Yes.
What about-
That's what.
I know I,
Thank you.
There's just 3 copies.
Yeah.
You can share.
I think I forgot now.
you forgot what you were gonna rebut now, didn't you?
No, I forgot one copy in the office. I think it fell or.
Okay, I won't write on mine, I'll just,
Oh,
Okay, we can write on ours then.
you guys can write on yours.
Okay. If you open, the first page would be the main website. And then on the second page, the one with the green background, right there, at the back.
Yes.
I'd just like to indicate, if you look at the pictures here, it says Winter Golf School. So being open for 50% in a year, I think not. It could be more than 50%. And on the next page, 1 of 3, the last 3 words, it says here, we host more, and it continues to the next page, than 75 weddings annually, as well as many other special events such as seminars, conferences, meetings, showers, baby showers, events in general. And also it indicates at the last sentence of the same page, it indicates, last sentence, we are open year-round and we look forward to helping you plan your next special event. That indicates the time that they are open, whether weather permitting, I guess, unless there's a blizzard or something, then it's hard to get there, right? So that's from their website, and it was downloaded and printed on page 1 of 2, on the first page. It says here November 4, 2019, and that's where I checked their website and printed this. And the next pile of paper that you have is the lease summary. It's just for your reference. The rent is $1 a year for 25 years. And that's just the term of, one of the terms of their lease, which I wasn't able to answer earlier, Madam, if you were asking me a while ago of the terms of the lease, and this is the terms of the lease, and it says $1 per year. And what else? I think that's my rebuttal evidence, Mr. Chair, with regard to the operation, the timing they're open, and the lease in place, which I think adds value to the property, because having $1 of lease or rent on the land is just a positive, a plus. You don't pay anything, basically. Well, I mean, you pay $1. That's all. And that's my rebuttal evidence, Mr. Chair.
Do you have any questions on this?
Oh, yes, please.
Go for it.
How does a dollar lease affect the market value?
Well, there's no cost in terms of, if you look at it in the income approach, there's no cost that you're paying. So basically, it's valuable to someone who would look at it and say, oh, I'm not gonna pay any rent. So, I mean, that's something, right, that should be considered. It may be an opposite to external depreciation. It could be a plus instead of a negative. Unlike, if, for example, I'm a typical restaurant where I go to a typical location where I would pay $14 per square foot of rent, that affects my economic depreciation right there, or it affects my bottom line in terms of income approach. But if I'm not paying any rent, that's a big value, a plus value, an appreciation. If there is, well, not appreciation, being thankful, but you know, well, you could use that too, but you could be thankful that you're paying for $1. But in terms of the value that you add into the property, we always look at the negatives associated with all these external depreciation or economic depreciation. Why don't we look at the value of the rent in terms of economic impact or economic appreciation on the other, on the opposite spectrum of the external depreciation or economic depreciation? And I think that's how I see it, in my opinion, Mr. Chair.
Are we valuing this property as fee simple or leased fee? Let's be clear here. Fee simple, that rent doesn't matter at all.
We're valuing it under cost, and
Is it fee simple though, or is it leased fee? Which is it? I think you're confusing the two.
well, fee simple.
It's
And
fee
I'm just-
simple.
I'm
So
just-
how does that lease have any effect at all on the income approach?
No, I'm just indicating that if we are gonna consider a lot of external depreciation on this one, then this one is a plus on the external depreciation side.
As far as the documentation that you provided, what else? This is a marketing document, is it not?
A what?
Marketing document for the golf course?
For which, oh, the first
Your
3
model.
pages, or the first 4 pages? Yes, it's on the website,
Yes. And they're marketing for what? For business, right?
of course, yes.
Right. So would it be prudent for them to put in their ad, we're closed 50% of the year, or should they put in the ad that they're available for parties 365 a year?
It would be prudent for them to honestly state
Well, they,
with how much time they're open. That's my opinion, and that's how I see it.
all right. No further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, sir.
Carrie, do you have any questions?
No, my question was asked and answered, thank you.
Lynn?
No questions, no.
I have a question on your half, on your city taxes that you submitted. Bill, it shows the net taxes at $88,000, then it's showing a credit of $29,268. What's the credit for?
Well, it would have been probably a tip payment,
Payments
Give
to
payment
date,
for-
so
a payment in advance. It's just what's owed, right?
That's what you owe?
Well, what the golf course owes. I mean, if you look at your own tax bill, it'll tell you what the gross taxes are, but it'll also tell you what's outstanding.
Also part of it is, that's already.
It's prepaid taxes.
That's the prepaid taxes, so what was left remaining was the $58,764.
Right.
So the total is $88,000. And to you now,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Valderrama, you supplied a copy of the lease, which is nice, but $1, would you say that was a net or a gross lease?
That's a tough question, to be honest. Net lease?
Hmm?
I would say that's a net lease.
But in here it says that there's responsible for all taxes, all property
Then-
taxes, so does that not become a cost to them? So, which
Yes.
is not showing up on that rent?
It may be a rent in lieu, or taxes in lieu of rent, sorry. And
It
that's,
says- But here it says they're responsible to pay the full realty taxes.
yes.
So that becomes sort of like your lease. Your lease is now at $88,000 a year.
A standard net lease would say that the tenant is always responsible for other costs associated
Yeah.
in renting the property, which includes property taxes. So I would say dollar is a net lease, and the tenant is responsible for the taxes.
I've got no further questions. That's it. We will.
No summation?
Oh, would you like a summation? Sure.
Is that extra?
Who wants
Well,
it?
I'll
You can
just-
if you'd like.
I'll just do a quick one.
Sure, go
in-
ahead.
in looking at golf courses, we have seen that even the municipal board has indicated or preferred the cost methodology approach. The plain cost approach, not a hybrid one, not an income approach, but just a cost approach. And they have done it in some golf courses in this, around the city and around the province. And that I would request that the board confirm this matter in, with an information that this is a golf course and that the cost approach is the most, it's the approach that needed to be used in order to come up with a market value for properties such as golf courses. And that's my suggestion.
On with your sum.
Well, quickly, there are three approaches to value, although I think Mr. Valderrama with his $1 lease tried to make another one. We have used the income approach and we've used the cost approach. They support each other. This property is a nice building, there's no doubt about it, but it's an awkward building for anything else other than what it is. What it could be in the future, no idea. It's functionally obsolete. And the city has leaned in on every opportunity to assess other taxes, local improvements and such that they just have to pay without question, without doubt. And that does and would affect the value if a property, this property was to be sold, because it would affect the next owner and how much he would pay in a yearly fee. I think that I've reflected fairly well using city data, the income approach, and I think I've better reflected the deficiencies in this particular property by the cost approach. I ask that you reduce the assessment to what I've recommended. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes the matter. We'll come up with our decision, and you'll be hearing about it.